Hey guys, V from Movies Hunter here. So today I'm gonna be explaining a romance thriller film from 2017 called The Neighbor. Meet Mike, the middle-aged tech-savvy writer who works from home. One day, as he is slaving away at his keyboard, he notices a young woman named Jenna moving in next door. Of course, Mike can't resist the opportunity to scope out the new neighbors, so he saunters on over for a look-see. But just as he is about to make his move, Jenna's husband, Scott, shows up. Great. Mike, being the friendly guy he is, invites the happy couple to a neighborly barbecue over the weekend. But when his wife, Lisa, gets home, she is less than thrilled with the news that Mike invited the neighbors over without consulting her first. But that's not gonna stop Mike from trying to make a good impression on the new neighbors, especially Jenna. At the barbecue, Mike's pulling out all the stops to be the perfect host. He has got the grill fired up, the drinks flowing, and the neighbors mingling. Jenna approaches Mike and starts chatting. Mike, being the smooth operator that he is, manages to steer the conversation to how long she has been married to Scott. Jenna reveals that they've only been married for 4 months, but have been together for a long time. Mike's ears perk up at this tidbit of information. But it's not just Mike's ears that perk up when Jenna mentions that she's having some trouble with her backyard. Being the gardening enthusiast that he is, Mike jumps at the opportunity to come over and take a look. Clink, clink. Sure, it's just an excuse to get closer to Jenna, but that's just a bonus. Later that day, Mike and Lisa have a conversation about their new neighbors. Mike, being the charming and delightful person he is, can't help but express his disdain for Scott. "What a jerk!" he says with a roll of his eyes. But Lisa, being the more open-minded one, finds Scott hilarious. "He's just a character," she insists. Fast forward to that night, Mike spies on his new neighbors through the window and catches a glimpse of Scott and Jenna getting it on. Wow, what a show, he thinks to himself as Scott abruptly closes the blinds. Mike, now feeling a bit turned on, attempts to make a move on his wife, but she is not having it. "Sorry, honey, I have to wake up early," she says, leaving Mike to take care of his own needs. The next day, while working, Mike spots Jenna in the backyard and goes over to chat. He offers to help her with the garden, and before he knows it, he is offering life advice and flirting with her. As he leaves, Jenna reminds him that they have to go to the nursery together to pick up plants. "Sorry, my voice sucks. My voice sucks. I'm sick. Subscribe so I don't get sick anymore. Love you." Back at home, Lisa shares the exciting news that their son, Alex, is coming home for the weekend. But Mike's mind is elsewhere, lost in thoughts of Jenna. Lisa notices, but he brushes it off, saying he's just stressed about the work. "Yeah, sure," she thinks to herself. "It's always about work with you." Later that night, while Mike's slaving away at work, he stumbles upon Jenna and Scott in the middle of a heated argument. Of course, Scott turns out to be the kind of husband that's about as reliable as a one-legged man in an ass-kicking contest. He has got a bit of a temper and isn't exactly shy about getting physical with his wife. The next day, one of Mike's friends comes over to visit, and they spot Jenna out in her backyard, tending to her garden. Mike's buddy can't help but drool over her beauty and starts talking about how he'd love to be with her. When he turns to Mike and asks if he has ever considered having an affair with Jenna, Mike just rolls his eyes and says, "No, because I actually value my life and my marriage." But that doesn't stop his friend from telling him with tales of his own infidelity and even going so far as to say he would kill his wife for a chance with Jenna. What a horrible person. But Mike still maintains his stance of being a faithful husband despite his buddy's attempts to sway him. Later that night, Mike and Lisa make love, but surprisingly, Mike finds himself imagining Jenna instead of his wife. The next day, Mike's out in his garden picking vegetables when he overhears Jenna and Scott's argument, escalating to the point of a loud thump. Being the nosy neighbor that he is, Mike quietly jumps over the fence to see what's going on, but they have already retreated inside their home. Later that night, Alex returns home after a very long time, and Mike is just thrilled, I'm sure. The next day, Mike sees Jenna going out for yoga and tries talking to her, but she's just like, "Sorry, buddy, can't stop, won't stop, gotta get my zen on." So Mike goes grocery shopping, because that's just the kind of thrilling life he leads, and then calls his friend to meet him at a bar. There, Mike tells his friend about the neighbor's abusive marriage and his brilliant plan to intervene. His friend, being the voice of reason, tells him to stay out of it, unless he is absolutely sure Scott is abusing Jenna. Fast forward to Mike's triumphant return home, where he sees Scott talking to his wife and son. Scott, being the perfect gentleman, invites them over for a swim. But Mike and Lisa are just like, "Sorry, bro, we've got work to do." Because who needs a break and some fun when you've got work to do, right? Alex, however, being the adventurous soul he is, accepts the invitation. But wait, there's more. Mike sees Jenna hanging out with Alex through his office window, and he is just green with envy. Can you hear the chickens in my background? If you can, then that means my mic is terrible, so please subscribe because I'm broke and I need a new mic. So he goes down to the kitchen to tell his wife that Scott is not who she thinks he is. Lisa, confused as ever, doesn't know what he is talking about. Mike then proceeds to tell her that they should be more careful around Scott, but Lisa, being the voice of reason again, tells him to trust their son's judgment because he is a good judge of character. Later that day, Mike sees Jenna alone outside and goes to talk to her. He tells her that he saw her arguing with Scott. Jenna, with a roll of her eyes, says that the fight was nothing and Scott was just stressed, which is worrying. She says, "You know how it is, just another day in paradise with dear old Scott." She then explains that Scott often acts like that when he is drunk and there is nothing to worry about. Okay. The next day, Jenna calls Mike and asks him to go to the nursery with her. While returning home, Jenna, with a sly grin, suggests that they should smoke some pot. Mike, with a raised eyebrow, agrees, and the two go over to Jenna's house to smoke. As Jenna goes to grab some drinks, Mike continues to stare at her back like a perv. Jenna then opens up about her relationship with Scott. She is afraid of his temper and doesn't feel safe around him. Mike, with a serious tone, tells her that if she is not happy with him, then she can leave him anytime she wants. He will be there to help, wink. Jenna then hugs Mike and starts crying as he comforts her. The two then end up kissing, but Jenna quickly pulls back. Mike, with a hint of disappointment, then gets up and says that he should probably leave. So one fine day, Mike hears the neighbors fighting again. Come on, man. Instead of just minding his own business like any normal person, he decides to jump over the fence and play like a superhero. But when he gets there, Scott and Jenna tell him to mind his own damn business and leave them alone. But of course, Mike being Mike, he doesn't take the hint. So when Jenna leaves the room, Scott expresses his suspicion that Mike wants to get in her pants. But Mike, in his infinite wisdom, denies it and leaves. Back at home, he tells Lisa all about it, and Lisa, being the voice of reason, tells him to call the cops and stay out of it. But Mike, being the obsessed lunatic he is, doesn't listen. Now Lisa is getting fed up with Mike's constant obsession with her neighbor, so she tells him she needs some time away from him and suggests that he should get his life together. Before she leaves, Mike goes to meet Jenna, and surprise, surprise, she is leaving Scott and moving to San Diego. So Mike, in all his glory, invites her to come with him. But Jenna, being the smart one, declines and thanks him for his help. And so, Mike sets off on his journey of self-discovery, or what we like to call it, running away from your problems. He checks into a seedy motel because why not? It's not like it's gonna be there for long anyway. He calls his son Alex and gives him some fatherly advice like, take care of your mother, she's lonely now that I'm gone. And of course, he calls his best friend because who else can he unload all of his emotional baggage on? And what do you know? His friend has the brilliant idea of joining a dating site because clearly that's the solution to all of his problems. But Mike, being the eternal optimist that he is, believes that he and Lisa can work things out, so he decides to not join any dating site. Approved. But then his friend drops the bomb that he saw Jenna with Scott at a gas station, which means Jenna is still with him. So Mike does what any sane person would do. He starts stalking her online. Stalking. The next day, Mike makes his way back to his old home, flowers in hand, ready to win Lisa back. But as fate would have it, he sees Jenna and his son Alex chatting. So he quickly calls Alex, pretending to need help with something because clearly he can't let his son outdo him in front of Jenna. But it turns out Jenna has decided to stay in town and is even pregnant, which Mike finds out in the most awkward way possible. But instead of reacting, he just heads inside, makes dinner for Lisa and waits for her to come home. And when she does, she tells him to leave and Mike is left eating dinner by himself. Later, Mike, the hopeless romantic, sees Jenna smoking and decides to play hero because clearly he knows what's best for her and her unborn child. Just then, Scott comes out all macho and possessive and starts shouting at Jenna to get inside. Mike, being the brave knight that he is, tries to intervene and stop Scott from being a controlling jerk. But of course, Scott has to go and grab Jenna's hand and force her inside. Mike, being such a brilliant thinker, decides that the best course of action is to throw punches like a drunken frat boy. Scott punches back, knocking Mike to the ground. Take that, Tyson. But our Mike does not want to be deterred, so he gets back on his feet and rushes to save Jenna like a knight in shining armor. Except this knight is wearing the same t-shirt and has a bit of a beer belly. Scott, being the gentleman that he is, punches Mike again, warning him to leave. He then blames Jenna for flirting with the neighbors because clearly it is all her fault. Mike, being the master of problem solving, grabs a golf club and hits Scott, knocking him out. Jenna is understandably stunned by what just happened and yells at Mike to leave her house. She then grabs her phone to call an ambulance for her husband. Mike, the self-proclaimed hero, slowly walks to his house, looks at himself in the mirror, and then slowly walks to his backyard. He sits down near the vegetables that he has planted. As he grabs a tomato in his hand, he hears sirens approaching. Because of his foolish crush, or I don't know what he felt, he has completely ruined his relationship with Jenna, his family, and life in general. And so this was the kind of pointless story of The Neighbor. See you in the next hunt. Subscribe so I can waste your time again and again and again.